Yeba Gunlan Namdalishin, Yende Gunge Gembambo, Sunjin Gunge Nyen Chibu, Tamje Gen Lai Gun So, Tashitalik to everyone. And we will be doing this several Dharma talks, and probably I will try to base on the framework of ground, path, and fruition, because this is a traditional kind of framework when we speak about Dhamma. For example, the two truths as in ground, and the two accumulations, the accumulations of merit and accumulations of wisdom as in our path, and finally the two kayas, the dharma kayas and the rupa kayas as in our fruition. And this is also known as in our Dharma category as in view, meditation, conduct, and sometimes we have result. So the ground is related to the view, and the path is related to the meditation and conduct as well, and result is related to the result. So you can understand it in terms of ground, path, fruition, as well as view, meditation, and conduct. Probably we can discuss ground as in the unity of dependent origination and emptiness, and in terms of meditation, maybe we will be discussing a little bit about the calm aspects of our mind, which is similar to shamatha, and the clarity aspects of mind, which is also known as the vipassana or insight. And as a conduct, normally we say that when you practice Mahayana practice, and then you have two core teachings such as the bodhicitta as an intention, and in order to discover, in order to develop that intention, we have to practice 6 parameters. So maybe among the conduct, we will also be discussing about the 6 parameter in short. So these are some, I think, framework of our talk, probably gradually, ground, path, infusion, or view, and then we will move to the meditation and then the conduct. But today I would like to say a few essential points, or how to say, the important aspects of Dharma practice that we should remember, and we should remind ourselves again and again, and so that our practice become a genuine practice. Because sometimes there is the real Dharma or genuine Dharma that we're supposed to be practicing, but because of many reasons, not knowing our old habits and there are lots of distractions, we might be imitating Dharma instead of practicing the real or actual Dharma. So probably for the beginners we might know the differences, but for the people who are already practicing, we might know the difference, but because of the distractions and our old habits, still not much is changing. And this is, I think, very important regardless of whether you are beginner or you are already practicing Dharma, because many times we are excited about Dharma and then we start doing something, and when we don't do it properly or genuinely, and then at certain level, not that Dharma is not working, but because of not doing it genuinely, because of ignorance, because of the carelessness, we lost eventually our inspiration that we have quite strong at the beginning. And also once we study, we might lost our self-esteem and the inspirations towards the Dhamma because of not doing it properly or not doing it genuinely. And not only this, but also by seeing other people's fault and not being able to practice such as the pure perception, we might lose our interest or inspiration towards the Dhamma, and this is quite a danger, but also very pity and unfortunate. And it is almost like you have encountered with a medicine, a good doctor, but somehow because you did not took the medicine properly, and then you thought that this medicine is not working and you stop taking medicine. And in Buddhism we call this motivation or inspiration or aspiration towards the Dhamma. Not only towards the Dhamma, but this very strong innate sense of wanting to be liberated or free. through practicing Dharma. And when you lose this hope and the interest and longing to be free, and especially instead of Dharma, alternately if you look at some material as and support or means to be free, then it becomes more and more complicated. So it's very important to check ourselves again and again. I'm doing this, I'm practicing Dhamma, but instead of questioning too much whether Dhamma works or not, it is also very good to question oneself, am I doing it genuinely or not? Am I really practicing or I'm just imitating it? And this is normally what we call the renunciation. So when you're practicing Dharma genuinely, especially within yourself, and then this is what we call the renunciation. If you are just imitating, then that is not the renunciation. So there's a how to know that whether my practice is genuine or not. There's a beautiful story in the among the Kadambas masters. And one time there was one person, lay person, he was inspired to Dhamma, and then he gave up things and he was solely practicing doing circumambulations and doing lots of recitations of mantra. And then the teacher saw him and said, "Oh, very good, you're doing something, but I wish you're practicing Dharma." And then this person thought, okay, maybe this is not good enough, I should study like a monk. He studied, memorized a lot, become a scholar. And then when he met his teacher, and he said, "You have studied now, become a scholar, that's great, but I wish you practice Dharma." Then he thought, okay, so maybe my master is telling me that I should practice, meditate, instead of studying. And then he started meditating solely. Still, when his teacher saw him, he said, "Wow, now you are meditating. That's very good. But I wish you practice Dhamma." And now this person, he became a little bit irritated. Because now what can I do? I did all, and still teacher is not satisfied and thinks something's gone wrong. And then this person asked him, "So what do you mean by practicing Dhamma?" And this teacher gave actually a 2-line instruction. So the first line he said that give up attachment to this life. Let go this life. And second line he said is that make your mind one with the Dhamma. So, how do we know whether my practice is genuine or not? We have this samsaric life and we want to engage with nirvana, but then there's always this, how to say, dilemma between our so-called normal or samsara life and nirvana life. Normally from the Buddhist term, when you are totally engaged and inspired and in the circle of this samsara, we call the eight worldly concerns. So when this teacher said that let go this life or give up attachment to this life, he was referring to this. Do not engage in the eight worldly concerns. Normally we categorize as an eight, such as gain and loss. So there's four negative things that you are longing for every day, and there's lots of attachment towards them, and you're spending all your time, energy to gain that. And there's the four negative things that you are very scared of that you might encounter with. So this attachment toward the four positive and attachment towards the four negative, and the aversion. So actually if you look at in samsara, the whole samsara is run by these eight worldly concerns that is very much driven by our attachment and aversion. So it comes down to these two. So for example, attachment to gain and strong aversion or fear towards the lost, and strong attachment towards the fame, strong aversion towards the defame, and attachment toward the sense pleasure, and so forth. So as long as our daily life is driven or governed or is run by these eight worldly concerns and these two, attachment and aversion, then you are not practicing genuinely, you are just imitating. Sometimes we don't do it intentionally, but it also happens a lot if you don't investigate ourselves, that we might use Dharma as in tools to actually run this samsaric attachment and aversion in order to fulfill that. So this is even more danger, using Dharma as an excuses in order to fulfill our samsaric intentions. Because of our tendencies, it might happen, it's not impossible. So that's why, for example, in the 37 practice of Bodhisattva, at the very end of, as in the summary of all the practice, Mujitome says that Dorna Kanto Cholam Chijekel Rangi Sengi Legap Chidash Gundu Dena Shishin Dembai Shindan Ruban Yasalale. So in short, as a practitioner, in whatever activities or the conduct or the behaviors that you do in your daily life, these are very much driven by our mind, negative mind and the positive mind. So always check whether your behavior or the conduct is driven by negative mind or positive mind. And through the mindfulness and conscientious. And if your activity is driven by negative minds such as ego, attachment, anger, you should immediately stop that. If your activity is driven by this altruism mind or faith, or devotion or compassion, then you should rejoice and keep doing it. And of course, not for yourself, but for everyone with a compassionate mind. And when you do that, you are quite safe. There is not much danger for you to be doing something as a practitioner that you're supposed not to do. And as Buddha also said that do not engage in negative, develop the positive, cultivate the positivity, and the core or the essence of negative and positive comes from mind, and taming one's mind is the essence of my teaching. So what do we mean by taming our mind? It's nothing else but checking our mind and see whether it is influenced by this non-essential, temporary, holy concerns, or am I doing something more important than that, which is something for the liberation. And when your this strong duality between the attachment and anger becomes less and less, and eventually when it's eliminated, and when your mind becomes soft, and more especially when your mind becomes a complete equality, whether you encounter with this object of attachment or whether you encounter with this object of aversion, and where your mind is not disturbed by these conditions, and if you can still become as before, as when you encounter these kind of conditions. And this is actually the meaning of what we call the taming our mind, so that your mind become a very stable, confident, regardless of what kind of external conditions that you encounter. Right now, our mind is almost influenced by the object that our mind encounters. So we don't have much choice. So we are not the, how to say, like driver of our thoughts and emotions. They drive us. And this is what it means, untamed mind. But when your mind is still in equanimity, even when you encounter this kind of ups and downs or object of excitement and disappointment, and your mind is still calm, unchanged as before, and this is what we meaning of tame mind. So what I was trying to say is that since the core of Dharma teaching or the practice is to tame our mind. Through that, we will be able to tame our speech, body, behavior. So that whatever we do becomes a Dharma, actually, when you do that. So if, let's say, even in the instruction it says that if you do something, even though it is not in the category of Dharma ritual, but then if that helps you to tame your mind, you should take it as a Dharma. So let's say if walking in the garden tames your mind, then you should do it, But you have to be careful. There's a two meaning that you can be tempt your mind properly, or you can just feel good. It's not like going to relaxation. That's fine, but then you become a little bit addicted to this quick fix Dharma. It happens a lot. For example, going into monastery is so quiet, it's so nice. Okay, that's fine, but that's not the real thing. Maybe it's just like a starter. So we should not think that the monastery is very important because it's quiet, it has a lot of trees or greeneries. You say, oh, okay. So here, when we say tame, actually for example, when you go to the monastery, whole monastery is a symbol of taming our mind, from the door to the statue inside. So when you enter the monastery and see all these symbolisms, and if these symbolic arts, or let's say the pictures or statues or tangas, whatever you see, if it reminds you to practice Dharma, if it inspires you to do more, and if it reminds you what is you should not do, what is your responsibility, and then this is the meaning of Dhamma. So you are actually getting a teaching from the environment. If you do something, even it looks like a ritualistic in the Dhamma, then if it increases your attachment or aversion, then it says that you should immediately stop it and divert your mind. Because even though it looks like a Dharma, for example, let's say, okay, now I want to meditate. And then immediately after meditating 5 minutes, if you start thinking like, oh, I am a meditator, I am special, these kind of things, then this meditation becomes a completely meaningless for what you are doing. And since in spiritual, there's a lot of things that people venerate, and there's a lot of actually dangers that we might fall into that trap, and thinking that I'm practicing Dhamma, but then from inside we might be, in the name of practicing Dhamma, we might be nurturing our ego very nicely, unknowingly. So sometimes it happens consciously, directly, and sometimes it happens very naively, indirectly. So that's why it is very important to check ourselves again and again. What is my activity? Regardless of it looks Dharma or not, but what is the engine? What is the motivation behind what I'm doing? what is driven by, whether it is driven by positive mind or negative mind. And that's why we talk a lot in beginning of teaching. Teacher will tell you lots about motivation, and this is exactly why, because motivation changes all your behavior. So this is one essential, as Buddha says, that the practicing Dhamma is nothing to show someone or to reach somewhere, because it is very much about being free within oneself. So unless you investigate your own motivations and see whether it is conducive to your liberation or it is adverse circumstances to your liberation, it's hard to tell from the behavior. So unless you check within yourself. And if the core of Dharma is meant to be this inner freedom within oneself, but then what you're doing is putting more and more bondage to yourself, and then it doesn't match. So it's almost like deceiving oneself through the name of practicing. And this is why sometimes we practice more and we become a more distraught. Because we're doing something, we're imitating it, but then we are not actually cross-checking whether am I really, what I'm doing is contributing to my inner liberation or not. Or is it just making it more and more bondage? Because sometimes more you practice, it seems like there's more disturbing emotions comes out. And also because of this, in the one of Sakyappa's teaching, we call aparting from poor attachment. And the first line says that if you are attached to this life, you are not a practitioner. So this is again same that we were discussing about the worldly concerns. What do we mean by attached to this life? Meaning is that if you are still worried and concerned about these worldly things such as fame, gain, loss, then you are not practitioner. You are just trying to fulfill your worldly wish with a little bit of mix of Dharma masala, so to speak. And I think this happens a lot, and it's natural in a way at the beginning, because we are all normal human beings and we have all these samsaric habits. But it is very, very important eventually to investigate, to recognize, and then try to reduce the influence of this worldly concerns and try not to mix that with our Dharma practice. So now, in this, when this teacher said two things, the first thing was give up attachment to this life, which is related to mountain conscience. And second thing he said that make your mind as a Dharma or one with the Dharma. So again, this is a crucial point. So first of all, I think mostly problems why we have this dilemma between the samsara and nirvana, or let's say our ordinary life concerns and the Dharma life's vision, is that we are somehow not clear what we really want. This is the biggest problem. Because we are almost like experimenting day by day, and one day we think, oh, maybe this is important, I should do this. You go there, spend some time and energy, and then after a few you get you lose interest, and then you always look for something else, right? So if you look at our own experiences, let's say from the childhood to now, what is the definition of essential, important? Actually, it's quite hard to find and say this is the important. It depends where you are, who you are, and what kind of mindsets that you have. And because of that, this impermanent, we have been deceived for a long time, and we're still doing it. And sometimes it seems like we don't like this impermanent, but then sometimes it seems like we long for the impermanent. Right? For example, like we don't like change, but then we also get very bored easily if things don't change. So we are very confused beings. That's why we are trying everything, maybe this is good, maybe this is meaningful, maybe this is essence. But the problem is that we don't really ask ourselves what we really want. That's the big problem from the Buddhist point of view. We always imitate and see what other people do. Maybe he's doing that, it must be important. Or maybe we try to ask someone else outside of us, and we don't ask genuinely to our own heart, so to speak. That's a big problem. And from the Buddhist point of view, it is believed that since we have a Buddha nature, if you genuinely ask to your heart, you will always get the right answer because of Buddha nature. Even though we might seem or sounds like confused, but he's never. He is always very clear, and he will give you the right answer. And sometimes it happens, for example, like when things start falling apart, and then you feel a little bit, what happened, right? And then you feel a little bit of this sense of being lose control, that you were wrong when you think that I will control everything. That was not reality. And also a little bit of this sense of that life is fragile in a way, and a little bit of this sadness comes. It happens to everyone, and that is actually Buddha nature is guiding you. Even though it feels a bit like sadness, but that is actually not sadness. It is, we can call it clarity. It's just telling you, don't be confused. this is the reality. Because when you encounter the reality, you won't be deceived. And this reality is, in a way, it's a Buddha nature's instruction that is given us. And now, see, all this doesn't work. So you should do something that you really want, yeah? But unfortunately, after 2 days, when it goes, then we forget, and then we become excited to the samsara, and we do the same thing. So, when he says, make your mind one with the Dhamma, it means, for example, we also, whenever we think about Dhamma, does it exactly goes down to our mind and think, whenever you heard the word Dharma, liberation, samsara, we always have this image of something outside of our mind, isn't it? Enlightenment, something to be attained. Samsara, oh, so many people, so many suffering, right? So we always have this idea that our suffering or the samsara or nirvana is something out of our mind. And my mind is something small or different. Many times we even completely forget that this is nothing but my reaction. And reaction is coming from mind. So because of that, there's a lot of illusions that, oh, problems are outside, solutions can be found outside. Even practitioners, we think, oh, I'm practicing Dhamma for the sake of enlightenment, that I will be, one day I will reach there, or I will be near that. So this is a little bit, you're not practicing properly in a way. So when he says, make your mind one with the Dharma, means whenever we say the word Dharma, even samsara, even suffering, whatever we talk about our experiences, immediately we should understand, oh, it's coming from my mind. Oh, it's within my mind. Oh, it's upon my mind. And when you understand that, then you feel like, actually, if I have a control over my mind, I can control everything. You will get that kind of sense of responsibility. So you will never blame or expect or look from outside whether it is cause of happiness or cause of suffering. And even when you practice, you will never think that what this person will say me, or what he will think, or what she will do. No, yeah, because I will practice and see what is the state of my mind, and I wanted to transform this negative state of mind to the positive fully. I want to discover my own potential, and I want to develop this potential to the fully. So that kind of mentality that he will have when he say practicing. So because of that, as long as you are not honest or genuine within yourself, our Dharma practice won't become a genuine. It will be imitation, it will be, imitation of, simulation of Dhamma. We might, of course, by doing that, we might accumulate some merit here and there, that's fine. But will it be the genuine practice? Will it be really like transforming, and will it be really like this practice being one's own mind mingling with the Dhamma? Still there's a doubt. So when he said, make your mind with the Dhamma, maybe first, don't deceive yourself. You have to be really genuinely, you have to be doing it genuinely from within. And secondly, why this doesn't happen is that you don't ask these questions, what I really want within my heart. So it's very important to ask this question to ourselves from the beginning, and then follow this inner instinct. And when you do that, it will always give you the right direction. Because our inner instinct, for example, accepting the impermanent, accepting the conditions, these are realities, these are realities. So nobody can deceive. Even though primarily we feel a little bit uncomfortable to dealing with these kind of things, but then once you taste this reality, then you will be automatically encouraged to do that more. So this is, I'm talking about, probably you can say in the Dhamma context, renunciation. So unless we don't have a genuine renunciation, our Dharma practice won't become a genuine. And in order to become our practice genuine, two things: understanding the futility of the worldly concerns and the temporary pleasures, and not spending time, energy, thought over there. And of course also having some sort of inspiration and interest toward the liberation, nirvana. And then asking oneself what I really want, not relying on something or somebody outside of yourself. And then once you find out what you really want within, and that is, you can say, like it's almost like this. Many times what happens is that in the journey of spiritual, we heard lots of, about the fruitions, or these fruitions, that fruitions. And then we also heard that we have these seeds within ourselves. And if you develop that seed, you will get that fruition. That's how we talk about crown, partner, fruition. But the problem is that it's almost like I'm so curious and I'm so short-minded toward the fruition that I want this fruition as soon as possible, as much as possible. And then we don't, for example, if you are a farmer, and let's see there's a lot of seed, right? Now the very important part is that you have to know where seed is. Once you found the seed, and then you pour the water over that seed. So right seed, right water, then you will see the development of the fruition, isn't it? Imagine that you have a seed, put it somewhere, you don't know where it is. You're pouring a water every day, maybe one day here, one day there, And maybe you are putting a lot of water whole year, putting a lot. So it's not just about effort. It's about knowing how to do it properly. And imagine that you're putting water for 100 years just by, let's see if I encounter the seed, it might grow up. Or then that somebody tells you this is the place where seed is, so you should pour water over that. And then maybe this seed will grow in maybe 1 month, So it will make that much of difference